Hi everybody, welcome to Copperwheat Films, and today we're going to talk about how to create a really simple lighting setup for an interview. So a few people mentioned to me about my lighting setup that I did for my last video, so today we're going to talk about how to recreate that step by step and light by light so that you can kind of see what different lights do and how they kind of work together. But what's really good about this setup is it's one, very simple, but also it's really easily modified as well, so that you can kind of tweak it, you can get very different looks from it, but from the same basic setup. So this is the place that we chose to recreate the shot. This is another loft. The previous shot was done in a loft, but this is somewhere different. And it's not very big, but really the idea is to show you if you can turn something like this into an okay type of shot, then you should be able to do that anywhere really. So the first thing I'm going to do is to try and get the person I'm interviewing as far away from the back wall as possible. Now this isn't a very large loft, so it's only actually a couple of meters, but what it does is just allows you to blur out the background and create a little bit of depth as well. So if you've got a kind of a place that isn't very good looking in terms of a location, try and get them as far away from the wall as possible, and then you can blur it out so you can't actually see it as much. So this is Dan, my brother, sat in the loft, and the lights that you can see now are the regular loft lights. So there's nothing fancy going on, it's none of my lights. This is how it would look if you didn't have any lights with you or any way of changing the light, which obviously isn't great. You can't really see him very well. The background looks a bit rubbish. The actual light colour itself isn't great. And you wouldn't want to hand this over as your kind of work. So what we're going to do is to turn off every single light initially. Now the idea of this is so that you can kind of start from a blank canvas, and that every light you switch on, you can see the immediate effect that it actually has on the person you're interviewing. And this is something I'll do for every shot, and it's something I really recommend. So turn it all off, start from scratch, and then you can see what each light is actually doing. So all the lights are off, and the next thing I'm going to do is to switch on the background light. And as you can probably guess, these are just fairy lights that are strung up against the wall in no particular order. So they're just kind of strung up. I knew that they're going to be out of focus anyway, so I didn't worry too much about the pattern or anything like that. But when they're out of focus, it gives quite a nice look. So we have the background sorted, and the next thing we're going to do is think about how to set up the lights to actually light the person that you're interviewing. Now what we're going to use here is a very simple 3-point lighting setup, and you've probably heard about this before, but the first part of this is a key light. And as it sounds, a key light is the main light that you're going to use to light the person. And what we've done here is we've put it in front and slightly over to the left of my brother Dan, who we're interviewing. And I'm not going to go into loads of detail about, or any detail in fact, about these lights specifically, because it doesn't really matter. This could be you could be using a lamp or a very, very cheap light. But we'll go into them in another video in the future. And the reason why I've put this in front and to the left is so that it sends some shadows across the face. We've done something very similar here. This is my key light over here, and as you can see, it's sending some shadows across my face and making it much more interesting than if I just put it directly in front. If it was directly in front, then there wouldn't have been any shadows really. It would have been very flat and nowhere near as interesting. So when I mentioned earlier on about being able to tweak the look of your shot, this is kind of a very important way of being able to do it. If you wanted to create much more shadow across the face and much more kind of dramatic look, then you'd probably just shift the light over to the side much more. But if you wanted a bit more of a even look and less dramatic, you can just shift the light over to the front. Very simple. So the more you kind of put it over to the side, the more shadow is going to come across the face. Now the next light that we're going to switch on is the backlight, and you might be thinking I've missed out a light here. I haven't. I'm going to come on to that in a second. But the backlight is something that goes behind the person, aiming at their back and aiming at their hair and their shoulders and their head. So remember, backlight, behind, aiming at the back of the person. Now the idea of this is to lift them out of the background a little bit and just create a little bit of separation. And it's very subtle here in this example, but you can see it does make a bit of a difference, and it does stop him, Dan, from blurring with the background and just kind of merging into one. It just creates, again, a little bit of depth and separation, which is quite nice, I think. So the other part of the 3-point lighting setup is a fill light. So we've got the key, we've got the fill light, we've got the backlight. Now the fill light, as it sounds, is just a light that fills in the shadows that's been created on your face by the key light. Now, I haven't used an actual light in this situation, I've used a bounce. Now what a bounce does is bounces the light off of the key and back onto your face. And a really simple way of showing you this is if I just hold my hand up by my face, like that probably, that bounces the light off of my hand and onto my face. A more obvious example is just a bit of white card, paper. I do the same, you can see, yeah, it's just filling in the light, filling in the shadows on my face. So the light is coming off of the key, onto the bounce, and onto my face. And that's exactly what we've done here in this example. We've used an actual reflector, which is very, very cheap. But if you don't have one, you could use a white t-shirt, or you could use a bit of card, or you can use a sheet, or anything. But the idea is just to bounce the light off of the key and back onto the face, and just fills in some of those shadows. Again, this is something that you can tweak. You don't have to have it on there at all. I haven't got it on now because I wanted to show you what it would do. Now this is quite a dramatic look where it's quite bright on one side and lots of shadows going on the other side. And I feel like we're just filling those shadows like that. The thing with this is that you might need to kind of change your composition a little bit, depending on how close you need to get to the person you're interviewing. So there you have a really simple lighting setup which you can use in lots of different situations. If you didn't want the fairy lights on in the background, you can just turn them off like this. Again, it gives you a little bit of a different look. You could just throw up a little bit of light against the wall to make it a little bit more interesting. But in lots of different situations you can use this setup. And like I said before, it's really easily changed, tweaked to get a very different kind of look or feel. If you wanted to get more shadow across the face, then move the key light more over to the left and to the side. Or if you wanted more fill light, just bring in the bounce a little bit closer. Or if you had a light, just turn that brightness up. Or you can turn the brightness up and down of the backlight. There's kind of lots of different variations you can do, and the way to really kind of get a hang of this is just to play with it. So get someone to sit in front of your camera, turn on the lights individually, just kind of seeing what they do, change the kind of intensity or brightness or position, and you'll really see that you can get lots of different looks by using this setup. So thank you for watching. If you've got any questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the section below, and I'll try my best to answer them. Please subscribe as well, it's got some more videos coming pretty soon. So thank you again for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Cheers.